Yo, 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 what is going down? It is the Fantasy Football Show here tonight, and looks like Nick is already doing that thing already that he promised he wouldn't do, but he's already did it. So welcome to the Fantasy Football Show here tonight. It's me, it's your man Johnny Main. Uh got Nick doing his best Undertaker impression. We were supposed to have Chris Allen on with us tonight, but some unforeseen circumstances happened with him. So it's just going to be Nick and I tonight, getting live here, chopping it up with you for sure. Waiting for him to come back. But in the meantime, we had some preseason football. We got more preseason football on the way. Steelers and Packers Thursday night. Obviously, you see me rocking my stuff here. Oh, there we go. Rocking my stuff. There it is. You know, nobody knows how to make an entrance quite like you.
Sure don't, man. What's up, great people? What's happening? Happy Sunday. We out here. We rocking. We ready to rock and roll. My guy Chris Allen, something happened to him last minute. An emergency overall. So everybody keep him in your prayers. With that being said, we're going to be giving y'all the best of the best. You know, we got the greatest tag team in fantasy football and all the great land out here. So we about to get started with it. We about to get it cracking, yo. So I'm fired up.
Yeah.
Usual.
Yeah, man. We just I was just talking about obviously we got preseason football, got more preseason football on the way for sure. Hard knocks, got fantasy drafts coming up. Like it's getting here, man. Like I shouldn't even say it's getting here. It is here officially, man. And I was out here today, man, working on one of my auction leagues, putting together, the spreadsheet for everybody for prices. I was like, man, it's here. It's here. We're live in a mock with Colin, man. We got that going on. I didn't even tell you. I got I'm in a mock as well with Mpemba from Fantasy Alarm.
Cool.
Going Tuesday for sure. So I might be able to get some good stuff on that. So yeah, man, I'm pretty pumped up about everything that's going on, dude. It's time. We've been waiting on this for too long. But yeah, Luther Burden, man, we were talking about that before we came on air. Luther Burden injury today, or today, limping. Kind of all the days are running together based off what I told you before we came on on live. Watched my niece last night. It's been a while since we had a 2-year-old, so whew. But yeah, anyways, man, he got a growing injury. Said he's set to miss some time. So real quick, man, what's that do for you?
I was already on Rome Odunze at price, so this changes nothing for me. It just gives me more confidence to have Rome Odunze. I know we've had the overall injuries he had down the stretch last season and a little bit of ineffectiveness when it came time to perform for Rome Odunze. However, like even coming into this situation, like before Luther Burden's injury, I was already pretty decently on him because he was just going in a range where people had just forgot about him almost. It's like he's getting into that. He's like the tier right before MHJ, BTJ, stuff like that. Where so like in that whole tier, it feels like there's like a lot of bounce back receiver candidates there. So I think Rome Odunze, I think he's definitely one of those guys. And now, the Luther Burden thing comes into play. So this is going to rise the cost of, a little bit. The boats are going to rise a little bit for everybody. So I'd say DeAndre Swift will get a little bit of a bump. I think Loveland gets a little bit of a bump as well. I think Rome Odunze is going to be the one that gets the greatest overall steam. I'm just hoping the steam won't be too crazy, but I do expect it to be like that now. Before, I think his price tag was like late 5th, early 6th. Now it might just go up a potential whole round, depending on what situation, what room you're in. But I did have confidence to grab Rome Odunze even before. I'm not going to say he was better than the Burden, but I think that Burden was starting to get steamed up for some people. And now Rome Odunze is going to get himself in a situation now where we should be getting drafted with confidence.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a nice group of receivers there in that space. You talked about like his current ADP 601, and he's a 601, Watson 602, Carnell Tate, BTJ, Marvin Harrison, DK Metcalf, Cortland Sutton, Parker Washington. So it's a really interesting group of receivers. It is. I think the injury itself is obviously it sucks for sure, but it also now kind of makes it like maybe he may now become a value
He will.
now because of this, or it'll be interesting to see how the fantasy world reacts to this injury because he was going around 406 in between Garrett Wilson and Lad McConkey is where he was going. So we're here, man. We're already talking about injuries already, man. It's
Yep.
already a thing.
Our favorite part of the year.
Oh my God, it's brutal. It's brutal. All right, so we were gonna talk tonight, like about like a lot of draft stuff, about where you wanted to be drafting at, kind of some high level stuff. So we'll start off just talking about preferred place to be drafting in PPR leagues this season and why. Where's your preferred place to be at, man? If you could pick in any spot, where would you want to be picking at?
I think in a 10 to 12 teams, well, usually my base is 12 team full point PPR, just for full disclosure purposes. If I talk about that, it's pretty much going to be full point, sometimes half. But in terms of that overall default setting, right? I really don't want to be picking 6, 7. Seriously. I really don't want to be picking 6, 7. I'll just tell you that. I think anything else, like 5, 6, 7, you can get away with 5 depending on the room you're in. You can get away with 8 a little bit more. So like the middle, anywhere from 5 to 8 is not really ideal. But anywhere 1 to 4, ideally 1 to 3 should be really preferred. Or just give me the back end because I'm going to clean up. Depending on the room you're in, especially, you could easily clean up everybody on the back end. Because here's the thing: drafting on the back end is going to allow you to grab guys that you can either go balance, you can go double RB, you can go double receiver if you really want. So you can curtail your strategy from there. And in top 3, you'll get a top 3 beasts in Gibbs, Bijan, or Chase. And then from there, like, in the next 2 rounds, at least after that, you're going to get at least, like top 30 players. You're going to get at least potentially 3 of those guys as well, of course, barring injury. But from a strategy perspective, I like grabbing at the ends versus drafting in the middle.
Yeah. I like to take the think work out of it. I want to be one if I have the option. I'm not overcomplicating. Yeah. Like I'm not overcomplicating it, man.
Can't be one in every draft, Johnny. So
no, can't be one in every draft, right? But like if I'm picking in the top 2 or top 3, like I'm definitely gonna be cool with that.
Right.
I think like you mentioned like 6 and 7, 6, 7, 8, like that's not like a really ideal place for me for a couple reasons. Because then like at that point, if somebody takes JSN, then it really puts me in a pickle because like I don't want to deal with Christian McCaffrey and his 5,000 carries and the injuries after this, and I don't want to deal with that.
Right.
I know there's a lot of really sharp people on Ashton Genty this season. That's still a really tough one. It's still tough.
That one too.
Yeah, it's tough for me on that one. James Cook, I'm all in on him.
I'm all in. I think we both are.
Yeah, I'm all in on James Cook. And then like you mentioned, now you're in a space where you're looking at two players now with Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb that were former number 1 overall picks, or CeeDee Lamb wasn't, but you could have made the argument last season to take him 101.
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson was obviously a really high pick, so it definitely gives you some options. But like we're talking about, you almost have to take a running back, like if you're in one of those spots, because it dries up like super quick. It dries up super quick. So like I said, like definitely like to take the think work out of it. Definitely 1 through 3. And if I can't get 1 through 3, then give me 11 or 12, because even if some of those guys that I'm not really interested in, right. Like an Ashton Genty, like a Christian McCaffrey, like if they fall to that space, there's still there's a whole nother layer of players that you can look at on the back end of the draft, right? Like you can make an argument to take AJ Brown, at 12 or 11. You can make an argument for that. You can make an argument for Chase Brown. You can make an argument, obviously, for Saquon Barkley, as we've talked about over the last couple of weeks. Same thing can be said with Derrick Henry. So if I was gonna be anywhere, I think that would be the place for me to be, would be again 1 through 3, or give me 10, 11, or 12. I'm totally cool with being in that space, just based off of what would be falling to you for sure. So, all right, excuse me. So we talked about running backs. We talked about how like running backs drive pretty quick. You definitely got to get running backs now. Like this year, this is kind of the consensus, right? Like you got to get your running backs.
Yeah.
I would say like you definitely at least got to have one within your first 24 picks. I would say. Yeah. At least for me, in my mind, you have to, because after that, it definitely goes south real quick, and you start to look at like a lot of floor players versus a lot of ceiling players. So we're talking about running backs that like we would love to be able to have, or two running backs that you would love to have before round 3. And I think obviously I won't even mention like the first I'll say the first 4 guys. I won't even mention those guys, right? So really like looking from anywhere down from like Ashton Jeanty on down. We both talked about James Cook. I think like he's he's a player that his ADP is at 110, but like if you said James Cook ended up being running back 3 for this year, nobody would be surprised. I'm pretty sure he finishes running back 5 last year. All he's done is actually improve each season as far as his overall performance in fantasy goes. And then obviously the new changes with Joe Brady being there, bringing in DJ Moore, healthy Dalton Kincaid. Like I definitely like that for sure. So James Cook is somebody that I definitely would be in. One player that I'm actually starting to warm up to a little bit, but I'm still hesitant. I'm starting to warm up to Kenneth Walker a little bit more.
Yo, stop it.
I'm starting to warm up. I'm starting to warm up.
We're starting to think on the same page now.
I'm starting to warm up to him. I think it just depends, right? Like for me, I think it really just depends on if I am picking at, let's just call it 104, if I'm picking at 104, right? And I'm able to, and I'm able to land, Puka or JSN or, one of those top 4 guys, right? Now I can really swing for the fences for a home run as far as like the running back position goes. Now if it's a little bit different and I don't go that direction, right, and I take a running back instead, like I don't know in what world Jahmyr Gibbs or Bijan would fall to me in 104. That's but crazy. Like, yeah, it's crazy. But like, or even JT, like I'm comfortable with him too. I'd probably take a step away and make sure to get a receiver. But if there was some way that I ended up with a very high end receiver, Kenneth Walker is definitely somebody that I am starting to warm up to, because like in the grand scheme of things, like I can go pros and I can go cons, right? The pros is obviously we know about Andy Reid and the history that he's had with elite running backs, and just the problem for Kansas City over the last handful of years is they haven't had an elite running back, honestly, since Kareem Hunt early on in his career. So I think that's one thing I think about is like, all right, Kenneth Walker definitely has big playability. He's always been underrated in the passing game for sure. But I still think the same thing with Kenneth Walker is like, it's still the same old, right? Like we can get really excited about him, but but also too, I'm like, this guy literally just played for the world champions.
Yep.
So like, how can it get much better than that? Right, like in that space. So and we know injuries is like a big thing for him. So I'm in on him, obviously Saquon, Derrick Henry. Yep. And then like guys like Javonte Williams, Kyron Williams. I'm still buying Breece Hall. I'm still buying him too, man. I know it's kind of like a shaky territory, right? But it's a high floor. And then obviously Josh Jacobs, I think like we still don't know enough information about him, which it seems kind of dicey to take a player that could have a possible suspension looming. But like we all know, man, he's a workhorse for Green Bay. And then there's still some really good value down here, man. And like we're into the 5th round now. So like I won't go all the way down to that space. I'll stop at Josh Jacobs at 309. Travis Etienne is really the one that ends it at 311, which I think that's interesting. And you took you took him in a mock draft that we were doing, Travis Etienne, excuse me. Yeah. So yeah, man. So I think there's a few options for sure that I like in that space, but my 2.
Yeah.
Give me James Cook
Yep.
And then man, there's no way for me to be able to land it. But I would say like I will go right to like the round three. Give me James Cook. Give me James Cook and Kyron Williams. If I had to take two, like because I'm gonna
I
have a
mean, you
receiver
talk
in this
about
guy.
Kyra enough, so you want to tell the people why you're a little bit more like okay with building around him, like
I'm
in a segment
okay.
like that.
Yeah, I'm okay with building around Kyron just because,
Yeah.
like, if everybody and their mom believes that the Rams are going to be the Super Bowl champions,
Yep.
then why would you not want that, right? And then two, Frank, he was talking about it with us a few weeks ago that just
Yep.
negative touchdown regression with Matthew Stafford is there. Blake Corum is not really a good in between the tackles runner, so like you shouldn't expect to see him running the ball inside. Matthew Stafford has little to no rushing ability at all. I think Colin actually tweeted out the one stat that I was always chasing during the entire playoffs because I have a theory with quarterbacks and rushing yards in the playoffs. That number is always going to go up, and Matt Stafford couldn't even get that done. So I just think that like it's just a really good situation for him. I think we have the fantasy community has not been on Kyron Williams the way that they should. He has a very high floor, and why would you not want a running back on the best team in the NFL in the Rams? So, and I'm looking at this right, like not being a glutton saying like, oh well, this player is going to fall or that player is going to fall. So that's why I'm saying okay, like James Cook at 110.
Yeah.
I can definitely do that, and then to turn around and say, okay, Kyron Williams at 305, because he would be the guy. Either him or Javante would be the other guy that I would take as that second running back on potent offenses that like we know are going to score a lot of touchdowns. And so if I get out of there going, okay, James Cook for the Buffalo Bills, we know what they're capable of, right? Got him on a potent offense, got Kyron Williams on a potent offense, got Javante Williams on a potent offense. That's what you want from your running back, a lot of opportunities inside the red zone.
Totally. I agree with that. So yeah, I mean, I think people in the space of the last couple of years have been up and down when it comes to Kyron. Um, so that's just kind of like, I think he's finally getting a little bit more of his flowers. um, and I do think that people are just when people told me they were doing Blake Corum in like the ninth round, I'm like, it just doesn't add up for me, um, in that regard. So that being said, like it's like I understand where you're coming from with Kyron. Um, when it comes down to it, I think the two guys that come to mind for me is the first one is Chase Brown. Like that's an obvious one. For us especially, right? Like Cincinnati is an offense that you want to buy into. First of all, first and foremost. And with Chase Brown, we're talking about a guy that's going to be able to do it not only on the rushing, but also receiving, the receiving work. And, obviously the key thing will be as long as Burrow is healthy, that we're good to go on that. But as far as that Cincinnati offense goes, like Chase Brown, it's his. It's literally his backfield. And when it comes down to it, Chase Brown, to me, still going out of value, in my opinion. Like, I realistically, if you were at the turn, I'd take Chase Brown. So, as one of my running backs. I think the other running back that comes to mind for me, um, it just becomes a little bit more like preference, and so to speak. It just depends on what room you're in and where you're kind of drafting. But like I'm on Josh Jacobs. I do think he's someone that we're getting a nice discount on already. um, and he's someone that if he's my second RB, especially like, and I'm getting him like early third round or whatever, he's someone that I definitely want. Because with Green Bay, like we talked about how there'll be pieces missing already, so to speak. It's a lot more, you know, um, it's a lot more cleaned up than it's been the last several years for Green Bay. Um, so now it's more about okay, like we have Jaden Reed, we have Christian Watson, we have Tucker Kraft, we have Matthew Golden. And then now Josh Jacobs is like, when they don't have Josh Jacobs, like, it's like Emmanuel Wilson and stuff. But to be honest, like, we know Emmanuel Wilson could maybe spot start maybe a couple games, but realistically, like, he's not going to be someone that, like, is going to be someone that carries your teams to championships alone. So with Josh Jacobs, as long as he gets the bill of, like, okay, nothing's going to happen to him in general, I do want Josh Jacobs. He's someone that is a falling value. And if everything was crystal clear with him, he'd be going as a top 12 running back. He's going outside of that right now. So for me, I think Josh Jacobs is someone I definitely want to prioritize, especially. And I could definitely build around, especially as my RB2 in a situation like we just talked about, where we're grabbing guys that literally we want to grab at least 2 solid running backs that can give us not only great volume, but also can, win us a week. And Josh Jacobs can do that.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. I think Josh Jacobs absolutely can. He's getting a little bit older, so I think obviously like that would probably be like the one concern and like the wear and tear on him.
Sure.
But and then obviously too, like the other thing last year was Jordan Love was extremely banged up, so like they had to lean on him like quite a lot more. I think you mentioned Emmanuel Wilson. I think he's actually in Seattle now. So yeah, he's in Seattle. He's in Seattle. When you said that, I was like, because Marshawn Lloyd. Marshawn Lloyd. Yeah, Marshawn Lloyd is.
That's an industry darling right now. Apparently. This guy's always banged up, and everyone's like giving him chances over and over again. It's like not sending them to their, you get sent to the principal's office, but the principal sends you back to class.
But like I agree, like with Josh Jacobs, though I think like there's definitely some skin in the game there. It's one of those things too. It's like, hey, like, are you willing to take on that risk at that point? Depending on what Commissioner Goodell, if he decides to do anything. If not, that's a good one for you for sure. So the other question we got here is 2 players that you're in on, even if their price rises before draft day.
It's pretty easy. It's pretty easy overall, I would say. When it comes down to like two guys, this was like not exactly a no-brainer, but it's something where it's like the prices that they're at right now just makes no sense. I think these are 2 players that are literally people are not giving enough emphasis on. The first guy I'm going to talk about is, we talked about him already last couple times, but he's someone that I still think his price tag is just a bit too cheap. And even if it steams up, I still want a piece of him in terms of where I have him on rosters. It's DeVonta Smith, man. Like, it's really relatively easy because like with DeVonta Smith, it's like, what happened when AJ Brown was not there for games. It's like DeVonta Smith was able to, still carve out a niche and a role. There's obviously we still believe in the bounce back for Philly. Snoop, what up, man? Appreciate you coming on, my guy. They overall, when it comes to the Philly offense, I do think that there's real good potential for everyone to bounce back. And I do believe one of the drivers of that will have to be DeVonta Smith, and that overall target share will be definitely increased on him, especially where he wins an area in the middle of the field and potentially downfield as well. So DeVonta Smith has a chance to really have double-digit touchdowns, has a bigger chance to have 1,100 potential receiving yards, 1,200 potentially, in an offense that we know doesn't throw the ball enough, but I do think that it balances itself out a little bit more because remember with Philly, they were an offense that from a passing perspective was still like a bottom 6 offense when it comes to passing yards and overall efficiency when it came to those metrics too. So that being said, like I just buy into the DeVonta Smith bounce back. It's obvious, at least it should be for most people. But I'm going to look to hammer that a little bit more now as we look towards draft season because DeVonta Smith's price, like even if it goes up to like potentially 2-3 round, like right now it's like depending on what site you're on, it's like 3rd, 4th, like late 3rd or early 4th. I do think that his price tag goes up a little bit more, but I think it stops right before I think it stops at like 3.4, 304, 305. I don't think there's gonna be too much of a steam up, but I could be wrong. But I think DeVonta Smith is someone I think people should be prioritizing. The other receiver I got, it's actually one of your guys from a couple years ago.
Checks out.
Do you have any idea who it might be?
Oh man,
it's a receiver. I'll tell you, it's a receiver.
Probably AJ Brown.
Oh boy, no, that'd be a little too easy, right? It's Christian Watson, actually. Christian Watson is someone that, for me, like again, another player that goes around that tier of receivers that we talked about, right? The Marvin Harrison Jr., the BTJs, the Roma Dunzes, stuff like that, like the late 5th round cluster and tier. It's a great way to get some exposure to potential, high end wide receiver to volume, and that's what Christian Watson I feel will bring to the table. He's someone that just like we always worried about the injury concern, right? That's what Christian Watson had, right? Like that's just the whole point. But now it's like, look, I'm willing to bank on Christian Watson in this spot because there's a lot of things that are going his way. One, Green Bay's offense, like we said, but like I said earlier, it's shortening up a lot more now, right? The ball's only going to go certain places now for the most part, right? And then even if Josh Jacobs is in the fold, it's still going to be a lot more narrowed than we've ever seen in the last like several years, right? At least I think this is the cleanest, at least pathway I've seen around Jordan Love, because we've always had to deal with the other headaches. We always had to deal with Luke Musgrave. He might still be around. We still had to deal with Romeo Dobbs, one of your favorite people. We've always had to deal with some other like guys that would just take away target volume and take away space for these guys to really operate. So now it's like Christian Watson, we know is the bona fide like wide receiver 1 in this offense. And with Green Bay, like we still expect a balanced attack. But Christian Watson, I do see as long as obviously, the health is obviously the biggest concern, but we're already getting that discount in drafts right now anyway. And if you're drafting well, you could take the plunge on Christian Watson because I still think he's someone that could definitely have a cup of coffee as a wide receiver 1 on some weeks upcoming. This will just come down to, again, his health. But overall, again, like, he'll have to obviously perform, like, 6 touchdowns last year while he was still banged up coming through. Like, that's still solid, but that's someone that, I think with Christian Watson, I do think that the guy is 6'4" for AIM, and I do think he has ability to get double-digit touchdowns before this season is said and done. So that's where I think both of those guys for me, DeVonta Smith and Christian Watson, these guys are just going, I feel, their price tags in my mind should be a bit higher, but right now people are kind of discounting them a little bit, which is phenomenal.
Okay, all right. Well, Christian Watson, I'm glad you're rocking with him now, man. That makes me laugh. That makes me laugh so hard. Oh man, yeah, Christian Watson, we back, so back,
we back, baby,
so back with Christian Watson. Yeah, actually, like the one guy, actually, and you were like, hey, like it's a little bit too easy. But one of the guys for me is definitely AJ Brown, man, and it's going to be it's going to be extremely difficult here to land him in any league in any league that I'm in here, being in New England at 206. Like I mean, you could make the justification, right? Again, like on the turn to make that happen. But like the things that I've always talked about with AJ Brown is he's been primarily in a run-based offense, and I think before I even get like going on my tirade, he probably has the one thing going for him that not like a lot of other wide receivers can say is like this man has literally played with the 2 best running backs in this generation. Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley, right? Like he's like, and he's had Ryan Tannehill, Jalen Hurts, and now he gets Drake May. Like, I think we all know what it is, man. So like even if you, for me, I know this is going to be a thing, right? Because it's a home league, or it basically is a home league for me. I'm so comfortable taking AJ Brown at the end of the first round. So comfortable doing that, right? And then like I think like we see like the weight happening like at quarterback. So there is a space where like maybe you can land Drake May in the 5th round, like as well, to be able to pair with AJ Brown. And you go back and historically you look at what Josh McDaniels has done as far as targeting number 1 overall receivers when he's running the offense, right? You even go back and think about guys like Jacoby Myers whenever he was out in Oakland, right? Like or Las Vegas, whatever it was. I just think like the sky's the limit. Like I really truly believe that like AJ Brown, like he very, very possibly could end up being one of the top 3 receivers in fantasy. He's going to get a 25 to 30% target share in this offense, so you don't have to worry about that. You think about teams like the Miami Dolphins, right? Like they're going against those guys. All right, like those are layups. The Buffalo Bills, like we've talked about, defensively, how they're leaving a lot to be desired now in this space. The Jets didn't even have one interception the entire single season last year, right? So you're talking about 6 games that he's going to have the opportunity to go out there and showcase and perform. So he's one of my favorite players that I would absolutely love to get my hands on. And then the other one is like me going right back to the well again, man. To Mecca Ibuka, going right back to the well again with him. And I know like some people are kind of wishy washy about it. I mean, all you got to do, man. I think like this is going to be the year of wide receiver U / Ohio State University. Chris Olave, right? Like finally, like he was able to be productive for everybody, man, and not really getting hurt too bad till the end of the season. I think everybody in the fantasy space is starting to open their minds up to Marvin Harrison Jr. You got a Mecca Ibuka now in this space. You talk about him last year, right? Like if he did what he did performance wise, if he did that at the end of the fantasy season versus the beginning of the fantasy season, he'd be like he would be literally one of the top 13 to 16 receiver, top 13 to 15 receivers off the board. And like even like Tedero McMillan and Zay Flowers right now are going ahead of him. And I don't know how I feel about that. But like, yeah, for Ibuka, if that was the case, man, first 5 games, 5 catches, 89 yards, averaging a touchdown per game, like balling, like literally balling. And we all know about the Baker Mayfield injury. If you watch quarterback. So I think like, Baker Mayfield, obviously his health is, it's obviously critical to them. There's no Mike Evans now in this offense. You still have Chris Godwin out there, who's somebody that like, actually I don't mind. Every time that I try to get him at the end of drafts, I try to sneak him, and I can never sneak away with him in any of these drafts, man. And it makes me kind of irritated. But like I truly think like Ibuka, he's got definitely top 13, top 12, top 13 potential, right? So like if you can walk away, at least for me and my money, right? Like if you can walk away and say, hey, you can get AJ Brown at 1, and then you can kind of do the things I was talking about, or even like James. If I started off my draft, James Cook, AJ Brown, Javonte Williams, or Kyron Williams, and then Ibuka, man, I'd be super happy. I think that'd be like a really, really great start to my draft. So that's kind of like what I'm thinking. It's like I'm building out like what my perfect draft strategy would be. Like if I'm picking on the back end, I would love that to have James Cook, Kyron Williams, AJ Brown, and Emeka Ibuka. That would be that would definitely be awesome for me for sure.
I like that thought process. I like that.
All right. So we got the onesie positions, man.
Yeah.
The onesie positions, which I think this year is like, it's so interesting this year.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. What's your take on it?
Well, I guess I'll start out with just saying that quarterback is more deeper than ever. I honestly think quarterback is really what flavor you want, man. Literally. I think if you're like a fantasy guy that just wants to have a quarterback that stabilizes your roster, you're gonna go with a Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson a little bit earlier, right? Just because they're a little bit more, they'll give you more of that base floor but potential really high ceiling every week, and that makes your roster a little bit more crystallizing, right? So there's that. I think I'm usually a guy that likes to just wait on quarterback in most rooms because the position really kind of is your quarterback position is basically, again, like guys that will give you 17 points on average from the quarterback position. So realistically, we're talking about the ceiling or quarterbacks like giving you maybe 23 on average, but then realistically, guys like Josh Allen can go out there and get a 30 burger. Lamar, same thing. Drake may be starting to enter that conversation a little bit. Joe Burrow, same thing. So it's more like if you're grabbing a top tier quarterback, like you want to strike, but you don't want to strike. I feel if you strike too early, you could potentially mess up your roster construction for later on. But as far as quarterbacks go, like I do think there's so many ones you can just grab, and you could really afford to wait if you really want to. But there's some people that they love to grab the Josh Allen, like if Josh Allen starts slipping down, because sometimes depending on what room you're in, Josh Allen falls to that late third, early fourth, and that's where that starts to be a spot where even I might be tempted to grab it. Lamar Jackson falls, he goes from that spot we just talked about sometimes, and then sometimes he gets plucked late in the fourth. So depends on what flavor you are and wanting at your quarterback position. But I do think that there's a lot of ways to skin the cat at quarterback this season, because you can even wait and go into grab a mid tier quarterback. So you could grab like a Trevor Lawrence, you could grab Justin Herbert, or Caleb Williams, like that those guys, Dak Prescott, like there's so many guys that go in that middle-ish tier, like right after Hurts and Daniels, like those guys start popping up. So and then you just go a little bit later. I'm saying at quarterback position, you could grab. If you really want to grab Baker Mayfield, you definitely can. He has some sneaky rushing ability that people don't talk about enough. And obviously, Kyler's poster boy right now. As long as he's holding the Minnesota job, that's something that people can definitely go to. But I do remember a couple of years ago, we were all murmuring about friggin' Kyler Murray and how he's just this. But obviously, the situation has changed. And you can even grab a Bo Nix before those guys. So there's a lot of ways you can grab a quarterback and be really cool about it. And it'll also just be about how much your risk tolerance will be. Tight ends wise, you know me. If I'm not grabbing Brock Bowers, I'm not grabbing McBride. If those guys don't fall their early third round, I'm picking the early third round, then I won't get them. I'm seeing people already grabbing these tight ends like late second round. I'm like, I mean, I like those guys. Don't get me wrong, but it's like there's other tight ends. There's other ways you can attack the position too, and still find really good balance later on. So for me, it's like I'm always one of those guys that likes to, I analyze situations when it comes to the tight end position, and it's like, okay, like that's how I found my Juwan Johnson last year. It's like you can grab you don't have to grab a tight end within the first 7 rounds if you truly don't want to. Don't be forced to take one just because there's, the guy's kind of falling down the board a little bit. But obviously, there's a point where at tight end is a screaming value. So the problem with tight end position and why it's different than QB right now is that it's tight ends, the overall floor are as high the more you go on the draft. And so there's like one-off ceiling players and stuff like that, depending on situations. But overall, it would just be obviously what it comes down to is production from the tight end position. Who could score a touchdown and 60 yards receiving every week? So that's kind of how the game goes. But that's how I feel about how to handle these onesie positions.
Yeah, I think like tight end, man, like just like looking, like, obviously you can kind of you could stretch out like the floor like with a lot of these players, but really, I mean, there's 15 tight ends.
Mm-hmm.
Just like looking at it, that like if I got any of those guys, I'd be like, all right, like cool. Like I'm not gonna force the issue, right?
No.
Like in that space. So I think like for me, like waiting, like honestly, like in both spaces, is just waiting. I think like there's a couple of guys that I look at and I'm like, okay, like I would jump a little bit. I shouldn't say jump, but I would be more enticed to take them in the middle area, but like I just have a feeling that like Brock Bowers, like I won't get my hands on him just because like there's too much. There's too much at wide receiver.
Yep.
Like, like right around that time. So if you're telling me, this is just based off of ADP now. Brock Bowers is 208. AJ Brown is 206. I'm probably gonna go AJ Brown.
AJ Brown.
Yeah, and then you look at running back and it's pretty the same thing pretty much. It's like Saquon, Ken Walker. Saquon's 204, Ken Walker's 207. Like I would have a hard time passing on those guys for Brock Bowers. Might I do it like later on? Obviously, like if you're like us, a bunch of degenerates.
Yeah, right. You're a degenerate.
JC, what up, brother? What up? What up? Appreciate the love, man. It's one of those things where it's just like, all right, well, maybe I'll just wait. Like maybe I'll just wait like at tight end because like you continue to like go throughout the draft and that's how you end up with like the Marvin Harrison Juniors, the Parker Washingtons, the Chris Godwins, right? Like it's that, and then quarterback, man, it's like, dude, like I literally like I quarterback, as you said, it's just about, do I actually want my guy? Like, oh, maybe I can have Caleb. Maybe I can have Trevor Lawrence. Maybe I can have Baker Mayfield. Maybe I can have Bo Nix. Maybe I can have Brock Purdy. Maybe I can have Kyler Murray. Maybe I can have Tyler Shunk. Maybe I can have Cam Ward. Like, Superflex is going to be so much fun this year. Like, Superflex is going to be so much fun this year. In that space, it's going to be so much fun. But like, to your point, man, it's like I could not envision a world where I'm just like at 304 where I'm like Josh Allen. Just can't. I can't imagine. And like, even like when you look like, and maybe it's just me like inside of like my own head, but like when I look at like ADP right now for like the first 5 QBs off the board: Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Drake May, Joe Burrow, Jayden Daniels.
Yep.
Well, I'm like, well, Joe Burrow is probably the cheapest guy like there for me, because like I know what Jayden Daniels did when he was a rookie, and he was electric. He was flat out electric. Larry Tunsil, we just got the news on that, obviously.
Yeah.
With the injury. So that's obviously that's not good for him.
No.
And I'm like, I can't justify it right now because of the price, right? Like I think like previously you were able to, I think his rookie year, he's probably going in like the 8th round, something like that. But like we talk about 8th round, and there he is, the guy just hanging out there. Dakota Rain Prescott, just hanging out. Just hanging out there at QB8, right? And then you get to like the money guys for me. Like these are the guys. It's like Prescott, Herbert, Trevor Lawrence. I'm all set with Jackson Dart, Matt Stafford, Patrick Mahomes. So like, man, yeah, like I'm waiting 1,000% on quarterback. In every room that I'm in, I'm waiting, unless I'm like, oh, okay, like here's the opportunity for me to get a Caleb Williams, a Trevor Lawrence, like one of the guys that like I'm really infatuated with. And even then, if somebody does that, I'm cool. I'm cool.
Yo, Eli, what up, man?
What's up, Eli? Good dude, man. Yeah, man. Good dude. Yeah, man. Yeah. Seen Diener, man. I seen Diener down at Fenway. Geez, man, that's probably like 6 years ago, man. Actually, on a random, man. So yeah. But yeah, like I think like the onesie positions, like you can totally wait. Obviously, like if you're in a situation where you're, playing in like a tight end premium or a super flex, like the rules we're talking about, like they don't apply. They definitely don't apply, for sure. So, all right. So I seen you doing this in our mock draft, and me, like I like to change it up quite a bit. Like I don't like to give anybody a beat on how I do things.
Yeah.
Do you like to fill out your roster? Meaning like, hey, like in those onesie positions, like you draft them before you start to draft bench players, or do you continue to build depth as far as your bench goes before you fill out those onesie positions?
I'm honestly just gonna read the room. For me, I tend to lean a little bit more towards continuing to build the depth. But there's just some cases where it's like I see a Josh Allen falling down a full round of what he's normally going. That's tempting, right? Lamar maybe falling down to the early 5th round. Like there's different scenarios that you're like, okay, at some point, a guy becomes a really distinct value from where you thought he was going, and that is just gonna then depend on your room, bro. If you're telling me AJ Brown went to middle of the 3rd round, right? You would be like you would be pouncing on that. So
he would make it. He would make it to the 3rd round with me there.
Well, I'm just saying, like,
I feel you.
I'm just saying where you're like, yo, like this guy shouldn't be here.
Oh,
I got it,
man.
You know what I'm saying? This guy doesn't belong here right now. I'm taking him. That's ridiculous. You guys are fools. So it's just gonna depend on the room you're in. Like if you're in like a room full of like people who know exactly what they're doing, have a certain strategy or whatever. And yeah, you're gonna have to read that room a lot more than you probably would. Then you're like sometimes your home league where you're like your home league, it's like not to say people don't know what they're doing there either, but it's more like okay, like you might have a distinct of like what said player will do. So you'll still may have to change up a little bit in general, but you're like, okay, like we all know you guys aren't taking any quarterbacks for 4 rounds. Like, so then from there, it's like, all right, who's going to be the first and then who's going to be left out of potential certain like elite positions like a quarterback. So it's just going to depend. But I like to build a lot more depth. I think when it comes to the NFL season, like we want depth in places where, for example, like your tiers positions, right? It's like there's guys at receiver for me where I'm like, okay, like I know where my drop off's going to come out. There's certain checkpoints I have where I'm like, okay, there's a certain guy that I want. And if I don't get him in this tier, well, I'll be waiting. Running back, same thing. Obviously, those checkpoints come faster.
Yeah,
so it's like,
definitely do.
You're like, okay, am I willing to take, am I okay with after Jeremiah Latin goes off the board? Like, am I okay with, if Josh Jacobs goes off the board or Kyron or Javonte or whatever, like after those guys like go off the board, it's like, ooh, okay, like, am I okay with Cam Scatterbo? Am I okay with Travis Etienne? Am I okay with Bucky Irving? Am I okay with?
I think
so. So it just depends on everyone. I always try to tell people. I talked about it in Canton too. Always make sure you guys have a certain drop off point where you're gonna take a player, because at the end of the day, like if you don't know that for sure, do it before you draft. Because if you don't, you're gonna find yourself in a situation where you're probably gonna take a guy that people aren't taking in a room for a reason. You might end up taking that player just because they're falling value, but also it's like you didn't really want that player in a way. So but it was like, okay, like he was a guy that like should project well, the situations were whatever. He was a tiebreaker for me. Okay, no problem. But if it's like a guy you're not really in love with, then it's like, I could bite you later. But to answer your question, long-winded way of saying, I just like building out the depth.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like I'm one that like I think like positional advantage is definitely real. And like I find myself like in a lot of drafts. I used to do that like all the time. And I used to just like punt on tight end or like punt on like my third like wide receiver. I found myself like not doing that like as much. Like I found myself like legitimately like filling out my roster.
Championship advice, okay?
Like filling out my roster, right? Like, I mean, yeah, like all right. Yeah, like kudos to you, man. But like, good, Oh, listen, I know. Like, listen, man. I'm like Jalen Hurts, baby. That's all I want is I want to win. I don't want to talk about it. Listen, I let the results do the talking for me. I can't talk. I can't talk trash. I can't talk trash.
That draft night out championship to me is like, like I kid you not, like, it will probably go in a trophy case.
That's fair. That's fair, man. No, that's fair, bro.
Case, so
that's fair.
Talks back to that league forever.
That's fair. Well, yeah. Well, you're that like, yeah. You TO'd in that league, like like that was a thing. But like for me, I'm not like that's not how it is, man. Like for me, like I like to get into a room. I like to find my groove. You know what I mean? And I like to fill out my roster, and positional advantage is definitely, it is real. And like for as much as we've talked about like all of the options that are there at quarterback and tight end, like it's still a positional advantage if those players are on the board. And but they're a lot of times they're going to be like, because honestly, like right now, man, like I'm so intrigued by, like you mentioned Baker, right? We talked about Baker. We talked about Kyler. I'm so intrigued by those guys. I'm so intrigued by guys like Tyler Shuck. I definitely intrigued by Cam Ward. I was intrigued by him last year, right? I'm very intrigued by those guys in the back end because every single season there is a guy that goes in that range and in that space that gets there, right? And like one of the things that like I am extremely confident about, like, and a lot of this is like I'm not always going to say I'm the smartest person in the room, but I dare say that there's, 8 to 10 other people in the room smarter than me, like when we get down to this space, right? So like I feel good and I feel confident about that. Injuries is something like you can't control injuries. And like I'm never gonna beat myself up over like injuries happening like to your star players, like especially like in deeper leagues and things like that. That's a part of the game, right? But I know that if I go in and I execute to the plan that like I have, I know I'm gonna have a shot like going into the playoffs. And ultimately, man, that's all you can ask for, right? Because like how many times have we seen, the number 6 seed beat the 1 seed, or the number, 8 seed beat the number 1 seed, and like the team that ends up winning is the number 4 seed because and I'm just making something up because CD Lamb got a concussion in, week 15, right? Like it happens. So like I'm totally comfortable, man. Um, just filling out my roster because like right now, like it's like the one guy that like I'm consistently ending up with like in almost every league. And I'm like, okay, like this is cool. Like I'm consistently ending up with Dalton Kincaid. Dalton Kincaid is like consistently like landing to me. Like right. Like there isn't a draft where like he
That's
hasn't
interesting.
right, like where he hasn't landed to me. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, I could say if he gets hurt, but like if he doesn't get hurt,
Yeah, we can't do the hypotheticals. You already know.
right. You know what I mean? So like if it lands for me and like what else is happening, right? It's like Dalton Kincaid and then TJ Hawkinson is buried on these he's buried. So I'm like, oh,
Johnson again.
Brenton Strange.
Buried.
Brenton Strange, right? Dalton Schultz, right? Like there's a lot of options. Like, but like again, like he's a starting tight end, he can get you 8-9 points. All right, cool. If the build for your team is solid, right, and that's all you need is just that. All right, like cool, like no biggie, man. So, yeah, I like to fill out my roster, man. That's what I like to do. But like if my guys are gone, like if the guys are gone, then like I will build depth, and then like I'll punt the position, especially like a quarterback for sure. So, I think it'll be fun this year with that. So, well, the last thing like we were going to talk about, there it is. We're going to talk about CMC or JSN. It's funny, CMC, JSN, in the NFC West. In that, like for me, like this is really where the draft starts. Is right here.
Yeah,
like this is where the draft starts. Right? It's like okay. Last year, I was definitely on record for being like, hey, like I would prefer Derrick Henry over Christian McCaffrey. And I think even like when we did our Kings of the West, right. But even like when we did our Kings of the West, like I was not a big fan of Ashton Genty, but like looking at all of like the things
right about that,
like, okay, like, so for me right now, like I think, and not even I think, but like I'm more into JSN like at this place. And like if I was going to replace a running back there, it would be James Cook. At this point for me. Earlier on, in like when drafts kind of started, like Scott Fishbowl stuff, it was really, really intrigued by having Omarion Hampton be bumped in that space. I think a lot of people now are kind of catching on to him, and I think like he's gonna end up being a first round pick, for sure. By the time draft season, well, I say draft season, we'll hear in the next 2 weeks. It's gonna happen, but like JSN, I think it just makes a lot of sense. And like we talked about quarterbacks, right?
Yep.
Sam Darnold, guy just won a Super Bowl, and he's probably the 24th quarterback going off the board in fantasy drafts.
He's
man.
not
like,
sexy. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
This, but he's not sexy.
I hope he is. Yeah. So like for me, I think like it's JSN for me, like for sure. And I think I'm gonna let other people deal with the Christian McCaffrey situation and fiasco because the one thing I will say is I remember when we got to Canton, not obviously this one because I wasn't there, but last year, Kellogg, he was on it like white on rice, man. He was walking around and he was he's like, who's the one guy you should be drafting? Who's the one guy you should be drafting? And he's like, Saquon Barkley, the touches, and we're like, okay, man, like, all right. But like, that's the one thing like about history, right? It's like a lot of times like history is right. And the trend for Christian McCaffrey has been after this heavy workload that he's had for him to come back. if he even makes it through that, man. Like, right. And like the 49ers players are, falling apart left and right over there at that nuclear compound that they got. Right. And like Christian McCaffrey for everything that happened. And like, I'm not a hater. It was volume based. It was volume based.
Between the tackles, he wasn't good yards per carry.
And receiving. Yeah. Like receiving. Like, I think I seen something that was like his, like, if it was just receptions, he would have been like, it was either like 8 or 13 or something like that right there in the NFL. If it was just surely based off of receptions, right? So yeah, man, I think like I'm just gonna roll with JSN like at that point, man, and not overthink it. And then like when you look at like the rest of how like the first round goes, it's like, JSN or Christian McCaffrey. Give me JSN. JT or Christian McCaffrey.
That's where the debate begins.
JT for me.
That's where the debate begins for me. I take CMC, and it's only because between CMC and JSN, it's going to be like, that's like opening chess move, right? It's like, do I want a guy that, we talked about before, like the touches and all of that, historic volume that Christian McCaffrey has, the injury history, stuff like that, all that make it in. Is definitely everything's warranted, right? It's like we're having a copy and paste, position from last year. The only difference is that CMC has a lot more mileage than it was coming into last year. But the thing is, it's like the devil's advocate for CMC is that, he's finished the top of his position, you know what I'm saying? And overall, when it comes to that, but I'm for me, this has gone both ways for me in the past. But the touches perspective, right? Because when you look at DeMarco Murray from like way back, like 2014, whatever, when he came into the league, like, like the next season where he led the league in touches the year before, it was a spot where like we're not touching him, and that was like correct. Josh Jacobs though, like, was also a guy like the year before, like that was coming in and stuff like that. He had all those touches and stuff like that too, and it was still effective. So will CMC finish like RB1 overall again? Like that's just kind of asking for lightning in a bottle. I do think from a CMC productive standpoint, as far as fantasy points per game, like he is someone as long as he's on the field, like Niners are going to utilize him.
Guaranteed. Guaranteed.
And it's already like you were talking about. It's already starting to happen that way because look, like people are getting banged up already in San Fran. Even the backup running backs are getting constantly banged up, like fractured ribs and freaking people, pulling hamstrings already. Like, and then Mike Evans already there doing stuff that, he has a little bit of injury risk, So it's like there's a lot already happening in the Niners' perspective. So, I mean, look, is CMC like a guy that I'm always clamoring to? No, but I will make the case for him that he could still be like grabbed. It just, you would probably really want someone else to kind of handle that situation. When it comes to your first round, it's like you always kind of want to have like, at least, someone with a phenomenal floor that will give you great ceiling games. And JSN proved that many times last year that he was able to do so. So I have no problem JSN over CMC here. It's just more about like, depending on where you are in the draft and Christian McCaffrey starts falling, it's like, I wouldn't mind taking him. And then
if he starts falling, yeah, that's a different ball game, right? So it's like, because if you're sitting there, because I was like, I'm looking and I'm like telling myself, I'm like, okay, like if I'm sitting there
talking to myself,
I'm talking to myself and I'm going, okay, like if I'm sitting there at say 111 and it's Ashton Jeanty, Christian McCaffrey, and Devon Achane. Now I got to start making some business decisions. You know what I mean? I got to start making some business decisions. Right. And like now at that point, it's like, okay, like now McCaffrey has turned into a value. But like when I look at like the first round, man, I'm like, he looks like the one landmine that's there in the first round. He looks like a landmine. Like obviously, like we can't predict injury, but like God, like, Justin Jefferson just had his worst year ever with the worst quarterback play ever. CeeDee Lamb was hurt. James Cook is on the rise. We expect Ashton Jeanty to be better. Amon-Ra is consistent as they come. Danny Dimes apparently is healthy. JSN was Offensive Player of the Year. They got the Defensive Player of the Year award. Puka Nacua has been the best wide receiver in football. Jamar Chase has been the best wide receiver in the world. You got the two best running backs on the planet. I will let somebody else deal with it, man. But like, who knows? We might be sitting here week 7 and Christian McCaffrey might have 45 receptions and 9 touchdowns, in week 7. So, yeah. All right. Well, I guess that's it, man. I don't have too much more, man. I think that does it for us tonight, man.
Yes, sir. It sure does. So that being said, like, hey, Wednesday.
We're gonna try this again. We're gonna try it again. We're gonna try it again.
Hey, look, man, things happen in life.
Things happen for sure. Sure.
So I hope everyone's doing, well, and everybody's being taken care of, and we just wish everybody well for sure. But coming up Wednesday night, we got one of our favorites in the show coming into the fantasy football show. It's gonna be none other than Lord Reebs. Rich Rebar is coming in to the fantasy football show. Always pumped for this guy to come on. Always excited to be around. What a phenomenal human being he is. And we look forward to definitely having some laughs and, overall just having some great fun with a great human being like Rich Rebar. So that's Wednesday, 7 p.m. EST. So making sure you guys are setting your calendars for that. So that being said, for Johnny, myself, we out of here. The Fantasy Football Squad. We'll see you guys Wednesday.